Welcome. This is my adventure replacing my 2022 F150 Lightning CV Axle. I decided to record it because there's a lot of videos on YouTube about gas F150 CV axle replacements, but there's none for the Lightning, so I figured, you know what, why not be the first? So this is my misadventure here, or adventure, depending on how you look at it. Feel free to learn from my mistakes along the way, of which there were a couple. And I should be noted, full disclaimer, I am not a mechanic. Once again, disclaimer, I am not a mechanic. I'm just really cheap. The cost of these repairs is why I decided to try and do it myself. And so, yeah, I'm just really cheap. There was a template video I used. I'll link to it in the comments for, you know, where I got the steps that I took. It's a gas F150 walkthrough. The biggest difference is this nut. On all the gas F150 walkthroughs, it's a 21 millimeter socket, and I had to actually go to Harbor Freight and purchase a 36 millimeter socket, which is enormous. Apparently it's, you know, for EVs and stuff and super large trucks. So that did slow me down a bit. Alright, so obviously step one is you gotta jack up the truck and remove the wheel. The next step is you gotta remove that brake line bracket with a 10 millimeter socket. And then after that, you got to remove the brake caliper, and that's a 21 millimeter socket. You need a pretty big breaker for that, just to get them started. I did use my air socket to finish the job. And then once you remove the caliper, there's a vacuum hose which you got to remove the brake rotor and the dust shield in order to properly remove it. And I'm not showing you guys the entire thing. Like, I did have to get out my air hose and clean it off. It was pretty ugly. Taking off that vacuum tube, it requires a hex wrench. Once the vacuum tube is out, you can then get your ratchet strap and hang your caliper out of the way. Once that's done, then you can use your impact driver and remove that massive 36 millimeter axle nut. It was actually pretty easy, came right off. Once that's done, then you do the 21 millimeter front tie rod nut, which you can't really see from this angle, my apologies, but it's, you know, on the lower side in the front, it's pretty obvious. It's the tie rod. And just an impact driver with a 21 millimeter socket should do the trick to get that off. And with that nut off, I just used a little mallet to very gently tap it out of the, I think it's called the knuckle. And that makes things, you know, easier to work with right away. Now this next part, I think it's the stabilizer nut. It's 18 millimeters, not 21 like the other two. But that's the next thing that's got to come off. And then after it comes off, then you got to tap out that stabilizer bar. The next thing, I think it's called a sway bar. It's this little thin bar. That's another 21 millimeter nut. You just got to take that one off, and then you can start detaching everything. So those top stabilizer, sway bar, whatever's are, you know, a little sticky, but a little bit of penetrating oil, and the hammer, I got them right out. In the other tutorial videos, there's this like IWE device attached to the knuckle that you have to remove, and I was prepared to like detach the hub from the knuckle, but you don't actually need to do that. So nicely enough, as I was doing it, the axle came right out. So the next step is you just take the axle right out of the bearing, and then you give it a good tug, and that's it. The axle just comes right out.
It's out. And that is what the other one looks like. Is that this one?
Now this is either a big difference between electric and gas, or I just screwed up. Time's going to tell. There's supposedly a rubber O-ring you're supposed to keep and then reuse on the next axle, but I, for the life of me, could not find it. I rewatched the video. It didn't like fall out anywhere, so either it's all the way in the back and it just stayed where it needed to stay, or I don't know. But either way, I deliberately greased both ends of the new axle before I put it in. Putting it in is actually relatively straightforward. You can tell here it's the whole axle moves. It's not properly seated. I've used a mallet to sort of help tap it in a little bit, and then you can feel when it's really in there, because then when you try and tug it out, the rubber will go, but the axle itself stays put. This is nicely seated. Now my bearing had a little bit of debris in there because it's filthy, and so I put a liberal amount of grease in there after I wiped it out with a paper towel. And then you just put that CV axle right through the bearing, and then you're ready to attach that new 36 millimeter axle nut. Just finger tighten it, and then you tighten it with a socket wrench. Now this may be place number 2 where, I don't know what I'm doing and I possibly screwed it up, but I don't know. We'll see. I tightened it down what felt like pretty good with that impact driver, and I noticed when I did, it sort of pulled the axle out a little bit from the gearbox. I'm not sure if that's how it's supposed to work or not. I mean, it's still obviously seated in there, and when I looked and compared the nut depth, with the new axle nut and the old axle nut, they actually look pretty similar, maybe even a little less tight. So I'm not sure, but it is in and it drives. So yeah, we're going to have to wait and see on that one if it was a mistake or not. I use my breaker bar to sort of muscle that sway bar back down into the knuckle and get it rethreaded and get it started. I did try with my socket wrench, the power socket, to get it rethreaded in there, but that did not work. Unfortunately, you need a crescent wrench to hold the bolt, and then another wrench to tighten down that 18 millimeter nut, because otherwise the bolt just spins in the knuckle socket. So, but that's not terribly hard. It only took me a couple minutes and a couple tries to get that figured out. And then next you reseat and tighten the 21 millimeter bolt for that, I think it's called a stabilizer arm. Pretty straightforward. Once the stabilizer arm's done, then you got that tie rod nut. Again, that one's 21 millimeters, those are the same as the tire nuts, so it's kind of handy. You only need the one. Next, you got to reattach that vacuum hose with the hex wrench. This is definitely mistake number 3 for me. I can't believe it, but the video doesn't lie. You're supposed to, tighten that 10 millimeter nuts for the dust shield, and for some reason all I did was finger tighten them. I'm going to have to go back after I'm done editing this video, take the wheel off, and properly tighten that dust shield. And with a proper dust shield, then you can put the brake rotor back on. Once the brake rotor's back on, then you can begin reattaching that caliper. Again, that's with those 21 millimeter bolts on the back. I use a combination of that breaker bar and my air socket wrench to tighten it back on. Once that's done, then you reattach that brake hose bracket, which is 10 millimeters. And for the most part, that's it. with all the straps and stuff out of the way, you can sort of see where the CV is being pulled out a little bit. I don't know if that's normal or not, because again, the car is jacked and the wheel is all the way, the hub is all the way down. But yeah, basically I threw the tire back on, tightened it down, and I feel very lucky that I was able to actually do this. I ordered this aftermarket CV axle off of Amazon, and I got it for $180, like the week before the 2025 Donald J. Trump tariffs kicked in. And so now if I look on Amazon for the exact same aftermarket CV axle, it's almost $400. And so between labor and parts, I'm just happy with all the money that I saved. Although we'll see if problems occur down the line because of the issues I mentioned in the beginning of the video. But I don't know, time's going to tell. Hopefully others can learn from my mistakes in this video, or maybe I didn't make as many mistakes as I thought I did, and things are going to work out. So I hope this helps other people.